So I just got done watching Matrix Resurrections, and man, I don't know. So this movie took a long time to get going. There is a lot of exposition, and if anything, based on when it came out, it's very interesting. So I don't like comparing movies to other movies, but in this particular case, there is a valid comparison. So if we're talking about movies that do nostalgia bait really well, the best one and the most recent one that comes to mind is Spider-Man No Way Home. Does nostalgia bait very well. I'm not really a fan of nostalgia bait, but if you're gonna do it right. The Matrix Resurrections does nostalgia bait hit or miss. And the reason I say that is because the places where we really needed callbacks, they were there, but this movie does what a lot of other franchises have done in the past, and that's basically either disrespect, degrade, or try to make obsolete what came before it. In particular, this movie does that with the character of Morpheus, who is one of my favorite characters. Now, let me be clear on this. The Matrix, the original Matrix, not the subsequent sequels, but The Matrix is one of my favorite movies of all time. It is easily in my top 10. So when I see Yahya Abdul-Mateen II doing his best Lawrence Fishburne impression and doing it to kind of a disrespectful effect, I know he didn't mean that because, that he seems like a really cool brother, but the way the script is written is very, very critical and disrespectful of Morpheus. Not only in Yahya's portrayal of the character, but also in the way that they describe him outside of that character. And that being said, it just is really a big slap in the face for me, because they didn't even invite Lawrence Fishburne back to be in this film. So knowing that definitely put a sour taste in my mouth when it came to this movie. But if we're talking about the movie overall, it was very cool to see Neo again, and very cool to see Trinity again. But what ends up happening is that this movie is trying so hard to hold on to what came before it, and not in a way of, oh, this happened, but in a way of, let's do beat for beat, shot for shot retakes of the previous film, that we failed to really launch our own story. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of concepts in this movie that, had they been fleshed out, could have been really cool. In particular, one concept is the idea of updating the Matrix, which they talk about in the other films, but they don't really flesh out, aside from the aesthetic of the Matrix, what that really means. Also, the idea of, and this is a spoiler, but the idea of the swarm, which is basically, instead of one agent taking over a person's body in order to pursue a target, they just weaponize a massive group of people in the Matrix so that they can then subsequently attack you basically like a horde of zombies. So that was really cool. But there are a lot of philosophical things in here, but they really do a lot more talking than they do showing. And it's clear that I think it's Lana Wachowski. I think that's the director of this particular movie, because the other Wachowski sibling is not present, and I can kind of understand why when you see this movie. This is really like a commentary on this particular filmmaker's dislike for the Hollywood machine and the remake machine, even though they're making a remake, which is super ironic. But it's also kind of a critique on the idea of choice and how choices really don't exist. And even though you're presented with a choice. Choices are not necessarily choices because you already know what you're supposed to do. So, those ideas were interesting, but they're not fully fleshed out. There are characters that honestly could have been taken out of the movie or written out of the movie that don't really need to exist. In particular, the integration of Agent Smith seemed repetitive and unnecessary, considering how we leave Agent Smith in the original trilogy. But the new characters are barely given any real airtime. You know nothing about them. I couldn't tell you their names if I tried. So I find that interesting. Also, the emphasis on Trinity is at first is fine. Like, it's done well, and I really thought that we were going to avoid a lot of woke nonsense. But then toward the end, towards the third act, we really start getting into that girls can get it done, the message type, rah, hear me roar type feminist messaging. And it really just doesn't fit that character, because Trinity was a badass already. Like, she was a badass throughout all three movies. And the idea that you needed to, I guess, like, juice her character up, it's kind of a disservice to the character. Also, they have a really interesting way of viewing the idea of video games that I really don't appreciate, because essentially they're trying to tell you that video games are a matrix of its own, and like, it's basically an opiate of the masses and a way to control people through sloth. And basically just, almost like a bread and circuses type deal. And it just, like I say, you can tell that the people that made this and wrote it from a lens of people that don't indulge in that particular activity. And that's not really good all the time, because you're literally talking to the generation that saw the original Matrix are gamers today. So, it's kind of one of those things, but the spectacle of the movie is fun. The fight scenes are really good. Seeing Keanu Reeves, doing his thing as far as, doing the martial arts and all that's really good. The chase scenes were really good. But I don't like that they gimmick, or they make a gimmick out of the original technology used in the original Matrix. Like, they literally break the fourth wall on multiple occasions, and it definitely takes you out of the experience, because a lot of it is, I think they're playing it for laughs, but it kind of just feels like they're taking the original concept as a joke, and I didn't really like that. So, I mean, if they do any subsequent movies, I would like to see them take the source material a bit more seriously. But overall, I mean, the movie was entertaining, and if I didn't know anything about The Matrix, this would be perfectly watchable. But as a fan, I could have done without this. As far as scores go, I'm going to have to give it, I'd say, a 6 out of 10. And that might be being generous, but let me know if I'm being too critical of this movie in the comments. Let me know what you guys thought of it, if you thought that, it could have done better, or it was perfectly fine and I'm tripping. So I'll see you guys on the next one. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the content, because it definitely helps me reach more people. It helps the podcast reach more people, so that, we can help the channel grow. And if you really want to, hit the bell icon so you know when the videos come out. But other than that, I'll see you guys on the next one. 8-Bit Heroes out. Peace.